And we're live.
Hey, 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 it's time for another edition of Fans of Power here, the much anticipated 1 year anniversary / spectacular special of Fans of Power.
That's right.
And of course, it wouldn't be much of a spectacular special if we didn't have, the Garth to my Wayne or vice versa here, Joe Amato sporting his second passion only to master the universe, the mask of the beautiful Jason Voorhees here to help spice up the festivities here.
That's very well said. So thanks, Tyler. Yeah, you'd figure for Halloween special I'd wear Michael Myers, but no, I gotta wear Jason. That's my guy.
Now people would find it very out of character. It'd be like the Undertaker coming in dressed up as a lawn keeper in a cemetery as opposed to an Undertaker.
That's right. There you go.
So it would just be too out of character with Joe Amato.
Definitely. So now fans finally can see us both. Well, me halfway, you full way, I guess. Seeing some of the stuff you have in the background too, your passion of Masters. But yeah, so this is episode, like you said, episode 52. It's a year straight of Fans of Power. So that's one episode every week. And it's also our Halloween special. So we figured we'd cover some of the, scary kind of characters in Masters of the Universe and Princess of Power, whether it's how they look, maybe how they acted, but we figured we would get into that. And then at the end, we can cover some the fans wrote in and they said characters they dressed as when they were a kid for, Halloween. And of course, it's Masters of the Universe pertaining. So we'll show some screen caps of that too. And when it's the ones that did share it, we'll show those too.
Sounds good to me.
All right. So I guess, well, let's just start it right off. And we're going to start off with the character that you mentioned. And it's a particular version. We'll get them up here. And it's, hold on one second. It's Skeletor. But now what's special about this version of Skeletor that is scary to you compared to others?
That's from the Golden Books video that featured four of the first Golden Book storybooks, and that's from the Sword of Skeletor. However, that image is not in the book. I don't believe so. That was something that I'll have to double check, but I don't think that image is used in the book. But it was just a depiction of Skeletor, which is very similar to the Alfredo Alcala design, where he looks more demonic.
Yeah.
And they would feature that screenshot. For those who don't know what I'm talking about, the Golden Books video was using images from the Golden Book storybooks with voiceover actors doing He-Man and Skeletor with music, sound effects, and they were very well done. And this particular image of Skeletor was featured in the Sword of Skeletor segment a couple of times. I just found it to be very creepy and unsettling. It's featured. Huh?
No, you're right. He is quite different looking than some of the others. I mean, sure, there's always similarities to something, but, for people out there that maybe, are just listening to us, because there's going to be those that are viewing us now live, but for those that listen, I mean, like, what is it about his face? A little more decrepit,
It's more decrepit, like his teeth are all like, they're different sizes. It looks very, like he looked very, like his skull has definitely decayed, I guess you could almost say, or it was very deformed.
Yeah.
When you look at the bottom of his teeth, he's got like all these upper teeth sticking out, and then he's got a couple small teeth as if either they were missing.
Yeah.
Missing. It looks very kind of small. I mean, it's just the detailing around the skull. If you can see it, the red pupils in his eye sockets there.
I always like that.
NYP, but it just looks. It's a very scary looking Skeletor. Probably the scariest, at least that I can recall. I mean, there were a few moments that Skeletor was like, oh boy, that's kind of creepy. But that particular version of Skeletor just always. I dreaded seeing that moment in the Golden Books video when that face would pop up, and it was right before He-Man came in to stop him. So I knew it was only temporary, and then it would show up again when Skeletor disappears in a green mist in the video. They use that image, and I'm like, ugh.
And only adding to it, of course, since you're watching the video and hearing a voice as a kid, that makes it even spookier to see and, hear a voice to go with that face.
Yeah, and the guy who did the voice for Skeletor, as well as everybody in the Golden Book VHS tapes, they did a really good job of doing alterations of what we knew from Filmation, because that's when you're watching this, that's what you know is the Filmation cartoon. And I think for people who were trying to do a similar job, they did one hell of a job of delivering a voice that's, you know what, if they used these guys in the Filmation cartoon, they would have done a really good job. Not that anybody could replace them.
No, but it's something like
had,
you said, you barely even hear. That's an unfortunate thing. You rarely hear about these Golden Book tapes, and the voice acting that was done in those are kind of like hidden little treasures, you know, that once people see them, they're like, wow, these are a lot. I mean, they're pretty cool, especially when you finally see them for the first time and you've never had a clue.
I know, yeah, and it really helps that the artwork was so well done, and all the ones that they used for the most part, and that the actors that were given these opportunities to portray these characters, like they obviously took it serious, or were given some very strict directives, because they deliver something that's like, you don't feel like you're stepping too far away from the Filmation cartoon, aside from the very lack to little animation that's in these tapes. But and there's another, Skeletor appears in the VHS tape in another scary image in the Time Trouble book. But I didn't think that this is the first one that comes to mind when I think the Golden Book scary image is that one. There's another one of him from the VHS tape that I don't think it's used in the Time Trouble book, but it's not used as effective as it is in the Golden Book VHS tape. So,
well, this one was done quite well, and that's what's different is Skeletor, like in the cartoon, obviously didn't. I mean, for me, maybe others he did. That's what's cool. I mean, in the cartoon Filmation, maybe he did scare people, but he just, I don't know. I never found him frightening as like in, some of the earlier mini comics, and as this image you're talking about from the, the tapes and stuff.
I typically didn't either. I didn't find a lot of the He-Man villains, the big villains, really frightening at all in the cartoon, or even in the mini comics, or much, illustrations from the boxes or card art. Just certain times, and this is definitely one time. There was a few moments in the live action movie where I felt Skeletor was very intimidating and imposing, and it's like, oh my gosh, we got to get out of here kind of feelings. But seeing this, it was not on the same level as certain things that scared me in He-Man, but this was up there. It was like, well,
I'm glad.
It's the moment I dreaded seeing when I would put in that VHS tape.
And I'm glad you found it. Like I said, I'm glad you shared this one, because I was like, man, we're doing a Halloween special and I want to do Skeletor, but I can't think of much. But then there is another version, at least a version for me, that I find scary. And that one is his MYP look. And his,
you found that scary?
Well, because he was more bone. It was like the bone white face. And, the red eyes. There's something about the teeth, because the teeth are more fang-like. And I found it at least frightening. I was like, wow, this is the first time I've seen Skeletor in a cartoon that actually appears scary, because first Filmation, he never seemed too frightening to me, especially the times when maybe he would smile and his skull is animating in certain ways. It's like, it just, it didn't do it for me. And then I never knew about New Adventures until fast forward, like I always said a million times, till they came out on DVD. But when I've seen those three Skeletors, those to me all appeared silly. But I mean, if they were frightening for people, hey, I respect it and I can understand that. But then here came MYP, and it's the first time we got, from what I remembered in a cartoon, a bone white face Skeletor. And I don't remember seeing that too often. And I'm sure maybe even in some depictions of mini comics or books, possibly there was times it was white. But this was the first time it was white, fangs. His eyes would glow red when he was upset to show his anger. And I don't know. I found him pretty frightening. I mean, I know that, you might differ on what you think about him, but he seemed pretty freaky to me.
No, I guess, maybe, it would be interesting to hear if kids, when this was on, saw this and found Skeletor to be somewhat of a scary character, at least in design. But no, I just thought it was a very well done, up to date, badass version of the character. I didn't find anything. I mean, I get where you're coming from, especially with the fangs and the teeth, and he is a lot more kind of a thin build and not so much the big bulk. That we kind of expect from Skeletor, kind of making he's definitely muscular, well built, ripped, toned, but he's a bit gangly.
Yeah, that's it. Gangly. That's the word. Gangly. Perfect.
Yeah, it gives him a different effect. So I see where you're coming from on there. I still think you're a wimp for thinking he's scary, but
that ain't right. That's pretty cool right there. But all right, we'll get to something else. That's cool. St. Joe's got a soft side. But all right. Well, how about this? How about we go to another MYP character that definitely was frightening. Now that's MYP Hordak. You can't tell me that sucker didn't scare. I mean, especially for kids. I'm not saying adults we have to be scared, but you know what? That moment, but especially certain parts, he looked scary for his very limited time.
It's definitely done very effective to give him a lot more of a sinister look. It's hard for me. I mean, I'm happy to go from, and I guess it'd be the same thing for people who don't find the things that I found frightening too. Trying to explain this. I understand because that's a very good, and I guess for people who aren't watching the YouTube video, they're just listening to this. We're describing an image of Hordak in the dream sequence at the beginning of the episode. I believe it comes from the dream sequence.
I believe so, yes.
Yeah, where Hordak kind of, it's kind of like that moment in the first Mortal Kombat when Shang Tsung, after he kills Liu Kang's brother, his face turns into the skeleton decay thing. And it's kind of like one of those scary.
Well, you know what? I got a question. I can't remember. A question. What was the face? I mean, it might have been similar, but do you remember when? Didn't he do that scream and that kind of look and that crazy face at King Grayskull too, or
yeah.
no?
Yeah, he does that like I think when he's kind of fought through that kind of wind effect. Yeah, then he kind of goes into his full-on attack mode and makes this kind of screech face.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
It's done very well. Definitely, probably you could argue the Snake Men were done very well, even though they were. That's a story for another day. Not very strongly with no. They lacked a particular male body part to give them any effect, but Hordak's very, very short appearance and it shows you the kind of impact he would have had the show made that third season to have seen a lot more of this kind of effect more frequently or more often.
And it's so sad we didn't get it, because just every time I look at the character, it's like, man, what could have been? But
yeah, it's a big reminder watching that episode. I mean, which I don't watch it in full. I just watch the quick snippets of the Horde and that's it. But it's just like this kind of lovesick feeling. You're thinking it could have been great, but I also remember how poorly season 2 was done in general. So and we've said it before. I just feel like it was probably for the better. As much as we would love to have seen, I just feel like it just would not have done it justice.
Would have been nice. You're right. Would they have done it justice?
Yeah, we would have probably gotten some decent episodes, but I think overall it would have been, at least in my opinion, pretty lackluster.
Okay. All right. Well, we're going to move on to one of your choices now, and that's Queen Elmora from Filmation. Go ahead. Why don't you start off? Tell the people about Queen Elmora.
Yeah, she definitely would probably be the third in my trifecta of scary women from Masters of the Universe, and just because she starts out as such a pretty woman, and then to see Skeletor turn into this old hag. And her voice is different. She's got one eye larger than the other. Like no, what's the word? It's like Kevin Pollak plays that guy in Wayne's World 2, where he's got no, where Wayne and Garth are looking at the guy's eye, and it's like, it's my eye, isn't it? There's nothing wrong with my eye.
Would you say it's like almost like a lazy eye or something?
No, she has no pigment in her eye. She just has or like the witch in Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves. That creepy effect to where like her eye just looks very disfigured, and of course with all the extra wrinkles, the white hair thrown in there, and her voice gets all kind of. I can't do an impression. It's doing a disservice to Linda Gary's talent, but
it's like you said, because she was a beautiful woman. I mean, she was a beautiful woman, and then just to see that transformation in a live phone call right here during Google Hangouts, but and there, that's it.
This matter here.
There, took care of it right now. Apologize,
okay.
apologize for that.
But
I usually always have that hung up, but no, you're right. She went from this beautiful woman to then, like you said, the transformation of this woman with, you know, misshapen eyes, like you said, the wrinkled skin. She then got the white streaks, you know, in her hair, and then her hair is kind of rustled, you know, off to the side, and in her voice again, and not repeating what you said, but it's basically what you said. But yes, she became quite frightening.
that, and her personality was flip flopping from good to evil when she really seemed so evil, and capturing Stratos and Battle Cat, and you see her face up in the sky and on Phantos, like, you know, laughing at He-Man, and it was just creepy. I just thought,
And that's
it
from
was
the She Demon of Phantos. That was the episode.
Phantos from season 1. Yeah, we got to thank Michael Reeves for creating this character here.
Yes.
Yeah, just such a and aside from it being such a great episode, it was a great addition because there's so much going on in this episode. But to see this character, you know, plus she's featured prominently on the VHS tape too of that came on, and you see her upper body and her face behind He-Man and Skeletor. It was very epic looking. I guess I probably should just pull the VHS tape out for that to kind of show that, but it's on Google search if you just want to look it up. He-Man VHS tapes, and I think it's volume 3.
Okay, and fans out there, you gotta know
it really depicts the creepy evil queen on that tape. It's really done well.
and Tyler knows his tapes. Everybody out there, I'm sure you know it by now. Tyler knows his VHS tapes.
I'm not trying to come off as some sort of know-it-all or anything like that. It's just what I'm conditioned to think, because as like I said, people who listen to it know that was my main source of watching it. And
oh yeah,
yeah. So
all right, well, we're gonna go into another Filmation character, one that freaked me out, and I think everybody, and that's Malcolm from Reign of the Monster. I mean, that, my God, this character for me, I mean, it's like you could take, in a way, it's like taking Superman's powers and putting him into this unstoppable monster. I mean, this creature, I mean, he has these really long, like, tentacle arms. He's a, like, you know, a half creature, half horse, but he's gigantic. And of course, Skeletor is, you know, using him to try to get into Castle Grayskull. But I mean, he has like a super breath. I mean, he has beams out of his eyes. It's like, how many things can this creature do? And then besides all that, I mean, just his look. I mean, just the fangs, the face. I mean, this thing is frightening. And again, you know, for people who aren't, you know, seeing what's going on, you can always catch this link when we show the YouTube link. But just to look at him, this is one frightening character that would scare, you know, I mean, he scares children. I mean, you could just see it.
When I first saw this episode, and I didn't see it till I got the entire series on bootleg, I thought it was laughable.
No.
Simply, the biggest thing was like, why is this creature have Fabio's hair?
That's what you got out of it.
Still to this day, I have warmed up to the design a lot more.
Right.
And it's just, I feel like the creature doesn't want a blonde wig or a blonde hairdo when he's got horns, you know, kind of thin brown skin, a very vicious looking face. I just like, you know, the picture that we're looking at the moment is probably the best the character really looks. And even the blonde hair in that particular image, you know, it looks fine, but it just, when you're seeing him running around and stuff like that, I felt like it was one of those designs, you know, me personally, it just didn't translate well. And I have no idea what Mark had really, and I'm sure he probably said it in the interview, but I just didn't think it translated as well, even though it's not a bad episode, and the face itself looks great. I just kind of felt like it was one of those designs, kind of like the Kraken in Search for the VHO, where they're trying to combine different things together, and it just doesn't seem to work for me as well.
Do you think, as a kid, though, if you were a kid, could you picture that frightening?
Possibly. Because there were so many creatures that were memorable to me as a kid, but not all of them, you know, I found creepy or scary. It was very few actual monsters. It was more or less like the characters as opposed to the monsters I found more scary. Yeah, because for the most part, very few creatures scared me, and that's what kind of makes me think that even as a kid, I may have enjoyed it, but I don't think I would have been scared. by the character.
Well, he got me. I mean, he was a frightening looking thing, and I mean, just the thought of, I mean, this is a design that, unlike a lot of the other designs in the cartoon, how they would reuse their characters over and over, but as for a different creature or a different name. Well, Mulcrum, that's it. I mean, this was just it, and it was just such a. It is a unique combination. I mean, you're right. At first, you could think, but when you look at it, it's like they did put a lot into it. Like you said, maybe it seems like it was a whole big combination of wow, what happened? But for me, it worked, especially as a kid. I mean, it did work, and yeah, he freaked me out.
I like creatures from like Greek mythology that like I'm trying to think of that one particular one where it had like the serpent body and the head of a lion.
Was there a chimera or no? That's something else.
Chimera, yes, that's it. Chimera. And so a lot of stuff that is silly. It would probably look very silly on screen, but when you see paintings of it, it looks really cool.
Yeah.
So I guess it's just kind of one of those things. Even though they're Kraken with a bird face and the Kraken body from Clash of the Titans, no, that does not work. But,
right.
But I will say I felt like the Mulcrum is still it's a solid design in general. So I definitely do not want to shy away from him without giving him a lot of credit.
Good. There, he deserves it. And well, here's one that I've said so many times. You've said it too. And you talk about a design that can be considered kind of, I don't know, maybe silly, funny, but until you see him in action and you see about his powers, and when you see his powers, and that's Shigora. Now, Shigora, a lot of people, always, compare it to, I don't know, H.P. Lovecraft, some kind of creation that was done. But I mean, it's still something that, again, in this cartoon is frightening. I mean, you got this gigantic blob type creature. He's got one eye. He's got this mouth with all these sharp teeth. He's got like 4 long tentacles. And it could appear to be silly when you first see him. But once you start seeing how strong this guy is, that's what I mean. You talk about scary characters. It's his powers. What we said before, that nothing could stop this creature. I mean, it took everybody to send him back where he came from, but there was no effect. Sorcerers hitting him with energy and everybody, nothing could be done now. Now, did this character, I know no matter what, he freaked me out, especially when he got mad. This character freaked me out as a kid.
Didn't freak me out.
Good Lord, what do you wish? You're hardcore. See, everybody look at that. Tyler, he's buff, he's big, nothing scares him. He's
well, no, this was, like I said, I saw this on VHS in 5th grade, and it was just a separate tape, but with just one episode to save Skeletor, and I saw it, and I loved it. I thought it was a great episode. I thought Shigor was a good villain. But I found nothing frightening about him in any way. Probably by that point, I don't think a whole lot in the cartoons probably would have freaked me out, because even then I had not seen House of Shakoti since I was real little. Up to that point, it would probably be when I got into high school before I actually see that again. So before that, yeah, no, Shigor didn't scare me. If I'd have saw Malcolm, it probably wouldn't have had an impact on me either. I just would have thought, hey, solid episode. And this one in particular, like we discussed before, it had Fisto and Whiplash in it, and the rest of your usual cast of characters and having the team up. It was a great episode. So
not even his strength though, like his powers, did that not do anything for you? Like
not really, nothing I hadn't really seen before. Not to downplay him, but
I was gonna say, but not before. I've never seen that like that. This character, nothing was stopping him. That's what I mean. It's like he's giggling, when the sorcerer.
Well, see, I was more excited about seeing Skeletor and He-Man teaming up to stop the common threat. That's what I was really engrossed in, was the cool team up. Shigor was just like the means to the end. Like you want to see them team up. Well, he's the reason they have to team up. So that was pretty much my, but he was a good villain though. So he was. Yeah,
because it's a combination. Like I said, it's a combination of everything we're talking about. For everybody out there listening, it's a combination of looks, powers, just things that might have struck you in one way or another. Just some of the creepy things. Now, this next thing, I know this next thing got me, and I really hope it got you. What about when the sorceress got turned into that harpy? Did that moment freak you out?
Had I seen it when I was little, yeah, I can safely say that probably would have creeped me out. If Queen O'More freaked me out, then the sorcerer being turned into a harpy, yeah, I would have found that to be oh man, this is awful.
Yeah,
I can definitely say if I saw that when I was 3 or 4, it would have had an effect on me.
3 or 4. So that's Tyler. That was the age when he was still frightened of stuff. Once he became 5, nothing scared Tyler. He's like, "Man, I'm not
I
scared."
don't know. I still had issues with Freddy Krueger for most of my from young boy to young teen to young adult life. So, and
Oh,
I still
okay.
watch the first Nightmare on Elm Street. At least certainly not at night, and probably not even during the day for that matter.
All right. Well, there. So something scares him, and obviously another thing that scared Tyler, Spydra.
Oh man,
What was it about her that got you? What got her? I mean, got you
the
about her?
the subconsciously it may have been because of her similarity to the Wicked Witch of the West, which always scared the piss out of me as a kid. But I don't think that's what I thought of. But first off, her image was so striking to me with her very narrow eyes and her very kind of narrow face. And then, of course, before you really know who she is, she bursts into this very creepy cackle. It was just, oh my gosh, just so creepy. And I mean, like evil female characters, I guess, when you think of like witches and stuff like that, I was very inclined to be, creeped out by them as a kid. And I can think of a few other examples off the top of my head from other movies and stuff like that. But just her look and her voice, Linda Gary, again, rocking a very, I don't know, witchy voice. I guess that's the best way I can put it, because it's different from Evelyn, it's different from Chakotay, but it sounds like what a very evil witch would say, because that's what she is. She's a witch. And just an awesome design with her kind of punked hair and her, she's got for a green witch, she has a very, well-built body with the hourglass hips,
Right.
with a very, very small waist and or stomach, and goes up to I mean, she's a well put together green-skinned woman. I can see why Hasrog wants to team up with her.
There you go. And another design that you never seen used or reused like they'd like to.
No, her and Asrog both were never used again, and I like to. It's cool to say that, hey, what they had their one time and it wasn't recycled into something that was, oh man, that took Spider's look and turned her into some sort of purple, fortune teller or something like that.
Yeah, because you hated when that happened, when there was those particular characters that really had an impact for you, and then you see them as something else, or just like a goofy background character. It's like, really? I mean, even if sometimes they might not have been the most memorable, for a lot of people, but some like what was it? And when I always talk about Cambro, that I like Cambro, and then he was reused for, I don't know if it was Herman or whatever his name was. He was some guy on a mountain, and it's like, oh, they used him again, and some people thought it was Cambro again, but it wasn't. And then I think even Gark, Uncle Montork's, pet, I thought they even put him in the background as like just a creature. I think it was in the episode we were talking about it might have been with Cambro, where they were having the circus up in,
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and just he was one of the freaks, and the 3-armed character, I mean the 6-armed character, 2-head, and when that happened, it sucks. So yeah, when there's those ones, see, that's weird. Everyone we're pretty much picking out are characters that was their one shot. They really weren't done again. And I think that's what makes them so memorable, is their one shots. Even ones where maybe, again, some people think some characters are silly looking, and that's Evil Seed. Now, I know he's been dubbed as being the artichoke head character, and nobody thought, this guy wasn't scary. Well, again, it's such a strange look to see something like this. And first, when he arrives and he's hooded, you're wondering, what does this guy look like behind the hood? And he takes the hood off, and yes, you see this artichoke head, which for some people could be laughable, some might be frightening. But then you see the power he has to take almost all of Eternia over, to have that kind of power, to take his powers into Castle Grayskull through a mirror, that window. And then it takes, again, just like they had to for Shigora, it takes the powers of, all the good and evil, basically the most powerful ones, to stop this creature who then withers away from the snow. He was scary and memorable to me, but others, not sure.
He was just very memorable to me because I didn't see him till high school, or maybe it was middle school when I rented it from a Blockbuster video, and I had not seen this. It was a tape that I had not seen before, and I.
Did you laugh when you seen him for the first time? Probably.
No, not at all.
Oh.
No, I thought he was a well-designed villain. It was. I found the episode to be a lot more impactful when I got a little bit older. I think when I got I guess probably it had to have been high school. I think high school, because I saw it and it was like it's all right. It's not bad. It's pretty good. He-Man and Skeletor team up to fight this common plant villain. But I think when I got in high school and I went back and rewatched the episode, I thought, man, this is a really good, exceptionally good episode.
Yes.
Had I seen it when I was a kid, he definitely would have come off as a very imposing villain. And the effect of the plant coming through the mirror and He-Man slashing it as it wraps around Orca was a great horror movie.
Yeah.
Tie-in, especially coming from the guy who wrote Friday the 13th Part 4.
Oh, yeah.
It seemed
you told me about that.
Throw in some sort of, scary movie reference, kind of like a, ooh, gotcha moment.
Maybe that's why it stuck with me so much, because when you told me about that, I never had a clue with that Friday the 13th 4 connection with this. I was like, oh, that made this episode so much cooler for me. So I'm glad you gave me that tidbit that I never knew about.
Absolutely, man. Barney Cohen.
Well, so that's another one. Now, the next one, this guy, if nobody thinks this guy wasn't scary, I don't know. It's like right there, movie Beastman. My God, as much as you guys, if there's people out there that still don't like the movie as much, which I always say, give it another shot. It is really good. You got to give it another shot. But
they give those people several shots.
There you go. See, coming from Tyler, look out. But that face, that guy, his depiction, that Beastman's scary. And if that was ever a figure, that would have probably scared children. But that's scary. And I know you want to run with it because, Jesus, when we talk about the movie, well, we already know what we're saying. But go ahead.
That and that image of Beastman was definitely the creepiest, because of the look of like this guy really enjoys terrifying this young woman. I mean, as a kid, I just felt like these guys, I mean, they were scary because of the situation that they're in. Plus the costume and makeup effects were without equal. I just thought it was done so well in Beastman. I mean, it said Beastman to me. It wasn't like, it looks like Grizzlord. Isn't that funny? It looks like Grizzlord. No.
And what was the scene? Wasn't it when he chased them in the gymnasium, chased Julie?
That is when they've knocked Carl through the door, the janitor through the door, and after Beastman smacked him around a bit, which was very like oh my gosh, he's tearing this janitor apart. And then when Beastman grabs him and turns him over, the guy's face is all busted up and bleeding, and they all see Julie at the same time. And Sorod points to shoot, and then Beastman slowly points his gun with this smile on his face. I thought, geez, that's scary. Like Beastman's not talking, he's just growling, but he is smiling like he's just like it's like he would pull like a Tyler Mane from X-Men, where he would get a hold of it and say, "Scream for me."
Mm-hmm.
Like he would probably really relish in knowing what he could do to somebody, and even when they're coming after her behind the stage, and he's tearing through the tinsel, I guess it's dangling on the stage.
Yeah, the tinsel.
All you see is this kind of dark silhouette of Beastman growling and tearing away and stuff. That was super scary too.
Yeah, and I think when just as we see with this particular picture, something about like his wet looking face. I don't know if it's how the light's hitting him, but
yeah, it's got a bit of a shine to it.
Yeah, and
it darkens his eyes. It makes his eyes look, of course, it looks really effective in the movie.
Right, and that's what makes it look creepier, than just a plain, let's say, just dried face. Something about when faces like that get wet and, like you said, shimmer, and it accents, like you said, the eyes, the cheekbones, and showing his grisly, nasty teeth. It makes him very frightening.
Oh my gosh, geez! Even though you didn't find him, I didn't find him. Of course, I did find him frightening when he burst into the kitchen and started beating up on Kevin. But that particular image of him, pulling out his pistol, getting ready to start shooting at Julie, but smiling before he did, it was just, oh man, so which made it that much more satisfying when he would grab a hold of He-Man and He-Man just knocks him. I mean, with multiple elbows.
Right.
It was just like, oh my gosh, just like, he's giving He-Man a run for his money, and he knocked him down, knocked him over the boxes, man. It just for me, for some people say you don't see a lot of He-Man strength in the movie there, Joe.
I didn't say that, did I?
But it was a great moment to see He-Man use physical strength to take out one of the evil warriors. I mean, with his body, using multiple hits with his elbow and then just backhanding him in the face and knocking him over some crates and stuff. Oh.
Do you think a sound effect of He-Man when he did that, it would have helped?
No, because the movie was perfect.
All right. Okay, now I don't want pop fans thinking I'm ignoring that, because I'm not. But there was two main characters that for me seemed pretty scary. They're kind of obvious. And one, yes, it's a no-brainer. It's Shadow Weaver. She's got to be, to me, the creepiest character in that cartoon. Because while I love Leech and Mantenna and Grizzlor, they still, just like with, the Filmation cartoon with, Skeletor and Beastman and all them, I never found them too frightening. Hordak, I never found frightening because he almost, with all the transformations he did, and it just, I don't know. I couldn't find his look in Filmation scary. Of course, the MYP I said I did. But Shadow Weaver, this is one creepy woman. She's super powerful. She has, with her magic, obviously, to put people under her spells. Her nasty kind of greenish skin. You don't see her face, but in one particular episode, she shows it to, like a kid. And even though we don't see it, you almost can envision some grotesque face to match that skin color, but maybe just horrid and, like almost worse than Queen Amorbo, maybe really green and melting like. It makes your imagination go wild. Just the thought of what does she look like? And plus she floats and hovers, turns into fire. How much spookier can you get in, that cartoon than that character?
Yeah, she definitely was the scariest of the Horsemen to me, and of the She-Ra cartoon in general. Not that I always found her super scary. There were certain moments though, and particularly the episode For Want of a Horse, which I found her performance in that and Hordak as well, because of the capturing of Swift Wind and stuff like that. But her turning into a pretty blonde girl just to trick Bo, being a boy that loved girls at a very early age. We're talking like daycare where I was chasing girls around. Yeah. And to see a pretty blonde girl trick Bo, and knowing it's Shadow Weaver, but still you're just like, it's a pretty blonde girl. Oh, she's tricked Bo. And just knowing what was at stake, that they successfully captured Swiftwind because she's tricking Bo into thinking she's this beautiful woman, and it's really the evil, ugly, which, you can't say Shadow Weaver's pretty, regardless of how well her body's built underneath that cloak.
Right.
And I don't think that she's pretty. But I just found that so frightening when, she kind of scares the Horde Trooper saying, there's really somebody you should be more afraid of than Bo. And they go, who? Me. And she turns into Shadow Weaver. I thought that was creepy. And then when I believe she kisses Bo for rescuing her from a Horde Trooper. And then when she gets done, she bursts into Shadow Weaver laughing at him. I just thought, oh dear God, man, this is and the music that's playing. There's certain. That's what makes She-Ra and He-Man so successful in Filmation is that they use the same pieces of music so many times, but in certain moments it was more effective than others.
Yeah.
And the moment when Bo realizes his mistake, and that Swiftwind has been captured because he got tricked, it really enhanced the terror for me as a kid watching that, because Swiftwind had been captured and got the infamous, really douchebag speech by Hordak where he's enjoying the idea of Swiftwind falling apart in a dungeon and seeing Swiftwind tear up. It definitely probably the most emotional, at least on a scary / sad viewpoint, for me as a kid. That particular She-Ra episode, definitely one of my favorites.
Oh, I can tell. You were really passionate about that, and I like the description. I'm sure the fans, they appreciate that. description too, because I mean,
yeah, and I don't hear people talk about that episode much. People always go to, just like with He-Man cartoons, they only go. It feels, and but I don't talk a whole lot in depth with other hardcore She-Ra fans. I know they're out there, and I know they probably know She-Ra better than I do. But there's certain episodes that I'm very passionate about, and that's an episode where I think from beginning to end is one of the best of the series because of there's just so much. There was a lot of good emotional stuff going on in there that I just didn't see a whole lot of.
And I like.
There's.
No, I was gonna say no. That's what I like is what when you're describing her, almost just like when Eva Lynn does that in disguise thing. It's a pretty woman,
which comes to mind too from Eva Lynn's plot. And it wouldn't be the first time Eva Lynn disguised herself as a pretty girl to trick everybody. So it definitely was disheartening to see a pretty girl is like, even though you're kind of fixated on seeing this pretty girl, flirting with the hero or whatever, or tricking people, or like, no!
Right, because that kissing moment you talk about, what makes it creepy is it makes you think of other moments in, whether it's movies or whatever it may be.
Like Freddy Krueger turning into a pretty blonde girl, Nightmare on Elm Street Part 4.
See, you know what I was getting to? I was going to get to that, and even the worst for me as a kid, this is, of course, not Masters related, but in The Shining, you remember when Jack Nicholson is kissing that pretty woman?
The woman, what, 2307? Is that the name of the room?
I think, and she turned into that grotesque.
Oh my! I remember that freaked me. It was just like, where did that come from when I saw that as a kid? Jeez.
Yes, that was, talk about it, from one type of feeling and emotion to another. That was
tricking a man into thinking he's flirting or making out with a very attractive woman, and it turns out to be,
So picture that.
Boy, I tell you, that really plays into a young boy's fears.
It does. So that's what connects to this then. Just this, like you said, when Shadow Weaver did that with Bo, just, of course, it ain't as gross, but yeah, it can make you think. So Shadow Weaver, definitely very, very
We
memorable.
salute you.
Yeah, exactly. And only one other character kind of freaked me out, and that was Hunga the Harpy. Especially the moment when they thought they were saving Queen Angela. And then Hunga pulls back that skin, that outfit, whatever, and bam, she's there. Hunga is creepy. It's another type of character that you never really see. Of course, we talked about the type of harpy sorceress that I said was creepy, but Hunga, that's the only other character I could think of that really was very freaky and creepy in that cartoon. She got me. That's why I guess maybe they never made an action figure. Maybe it would have been too frightening. I don't know, but she is one scary looking thing.
She would have been great to have incorporated in the She-Ra toy line, but I just don't think a villain with her visual look would have fit in with the more light and fluffy bubblegum take that the girls line had taken, even though the cartoon definitely had a more serious approach for a girl centric cartoon where boys could still enjoy it. I don't think Hunga would have what are you going to comb her wings, I guess, or something like that?
I think that's and that's why we never got Shadow Weaver. I think that they didn't want to give the scary ones. That's why, it's unfortunate, but it would have been nice to have those. But and it's too bad we didn't get enough. I mean, more Hunga. She's very limited, and I think she could have been a great ongoing character, possibly. That would have been somebody that would have.
Surprising they decided not to make
her a horde.
Well, I'm not even. You make a horde member? Is that what you said?
Yeah, I thought she would have been a great member of the horde. At least.
I see her more as like doing her own thing.
You like her as a solo villain,
Megator / Evil Seed or something like that, a villain that could show up on occasion when you don't want to do the usual horde thing. Mm-hmm. Making her like she's your like Count Marzo or something like that. Where she would show up every so often to be the main villain of the story. Mm-hmm. But you could, but I wouldn't want to link her to the horde because I just feel like that would really make everything like there aren't any villains on Etheria that aren't all horde.
Right. I guess me being greedy, the reason I would want to shove her into them is just then maybe we'd have got more of her, because they always, how it is, they focused mostly on.
Well, I guess horde. If Voltac can be a member of the horde, I guess why couldn't she?
See, but I do. You make perfect sense. The one-off characters are great. It is really good seeing one-off villains. It makes them feel like, again, they have no affiliation. They're their own people. If they wanted to try to rule things, they could do it. Like her and all her harpies, they could rule. They don't need the Horde. But like I said, I just guess I thought shoving her in there would just give more screen time. But well, that's her. There's one we've been saving this, and I guess it's taken long enough. But there's an episode, and that's House of Shikota, part 1 and 2. And well, I guess the first kind of character you might be introduced to seeing, and that's Mask. Now, that's a character. I'm gonna let you go with it because I know you love talking about House of Shikota first. But go ahead, Mask. What was your thoughts of this character? A little Darth Vader-ish, something else, or what?
I had not seen Star Wars when I saw this at the first time. I didn't see Star Wars till I think I was 5, and I had seen this at age 3 or 4. And oh my gosh, geez,
Were you messed up pretty bad?
It is, and I can't pinpoint the first time I saw it. Just like a lot of the He-Man episodes, because they've been with me for so long. But his voice alone was so creepy. And then you have the horned mask and a character that just seemed more serious and darker for a children's cartoon than usual. And just from his commanding presence towards Trapjaw, to like picking him up and kind of essentially threatening him, and it's just all this mystery about the character and his threat towards He-Man. You should be sorry for meddling my plans, and the music's kicking in, his eyes light up white, and it's just it was such an awesome performance Alan Oppenheimer did. Of course, they did a little enhancing to give him kind of like a robotic Darth Vader kind of type voice, which is probably what they were going for, like a Darth Vader type character. But
Sure.
Definitely a lot more creepier than Darth Vader. I mean, I never found Darth Vader creepy as a kid at all. Mask, though, the voice and that face was just a frightening combo to me. Little did I know that after watching that, the second part would just about would be about as close as to watching a Freddy Krueger movie to me as a kid. But first part, that's what makes it so well, is that the first part really sets it up with a creepy character and all this mystery about this haunted house. Essentially, you're just kind of making it simple. It's and when you hear that there was a deleted sequence where Chakotay's featured at the very beginning of this episode, where Mask pops out of the House of Darkness. I thank James E. Talk for sharing that one. That's
too bad we couldn't have seen it.
That he shared it. Couldn't have seen it. I know he's featured it in like a storyboard animation kind of thing on his YouTube page, which is it's just fun to see what they had originally planned.
Definitely.
To have Mask show up, open the episode with Mask and Chakotay's kind of eyes looming over the House of Darkness. It probably would have even scared me even more as a kid to have seen that. But
it would have been a frightening overload indeed. Now, Mask, when his mask is destroyed, doesn't he then just basically, like disintegrate or disappear, or just?
His whole body just kind of deflates, as if like the mask was just like a source of evil, and that it kind of used this form of body to kind of get him around and things like that. But it was like the mask itself embodied a demonic spirit, and it just kind of used the form of this, I guess, kind of humanoid man to get around and do things. But he could turn into stuff. He could shape change, pulling some Freddy Krueger stuff.
That's
things like that.
Yeah, and I think that's what made the character. I mean, well, not only the character, but that episode really freaked me out. Is we don't usually see depictions of death, obviously, in a cartoon. That's something you're not going to see, especially in a He-Man cartoon. You really don't see death. So, when I was talking earlier about first seeing Evil Seed wither away, but when Mask, a character to me that I looked like, I thought, oh my God, this is a man, but with some freaky mask, But when he, like you said, deflates and kind of just goes away, that creeped me out, because I was like, this guy's dead. You know, in my mind, as a child, that's how I seen it. I seen somebody kind of die in front of me, even though I know that's not really what happened. But yes, I mean the essence of the mask. But
Well, he's essentially dead. I mean, once
yeah,
that mask was cut in half, yeah, he's dead. So
yeah,
it really can't. I guess that's not something they would really preach and say in the episode. He's dead, because they're all
right.
about to preach death to or mention death in the children's cartoon. But you look at it, yes, he is dead.
Yeah, which made
Probably
that
one of the very few actual deaths, that other than robots being destroyed and
an evil seed, kind of.
evil seed dying, and maybe questionable if certain monsters were killed when they were had something drop on them into a body of water or whatever. But clearly, Mask and Evil Seed definitely did die.
Yeah.
And by one of them by He-Man. I mean, He-Man does kill Mask.
Mm-hmm.
But we can say that He-Man does kill.
See, look,
and
He-Man.
Did not feel remorseful about it, people.
He-Man's terrible. I told you he was a bad guy all along. Nobody ever believed me.
It was fake.
That's right. So these so this was, like I said, it's a two-parter, which we didn't really see that stuff. You didn't see two-parters, making them more memorable. Which at the end, like you seen the look of things to come for Shikoti, which we didn't know what we were expecting. What is going to be this Shikoti? What's going to happen? And when Stanley gets pulled in to that door, that was another crazy part. I mean, I know that freaked you out. It freaked everybody out. But it's like he went, and then didn't he just like basically absorb into it or some freakiness?
And that's what really creeped me out about it. Hang on here. I got issues with my phone here. Okay.
It's okay.
The idea of tentacles coming out of this, door was just so weird and freaky to me, and to hear Chakotay's laugh, to accompany it, and then I didn't notice. I think till DVD, there's a tear on Stanley's face because he's scared of that Ram-Man's hurt. It's a scary situation, and then I just, again, this is one of those moments from the moment that Ram-Man is knocked unconscious and Stanley's sitting there scared with it, starting to cry because he's like, oh dear God, Ram-Man's hurt. I'm in front of this haunted house here, and gets dragged to the door by these tentacles. And you think, geez, if I could cuss right now, this would be the time to do it.
Right.
I just felt like this is one of those moments where you're like, what the,
Right.
And then when, Cringer and Adam come up on the hill and see it, and then to see Stanley vanishes into the house of darkness, you think, geez, man.
Creepy.
It's just people. I'm speaking from a 4-year-old boy watching this, and it was just a creepy sound effect to hear him disappear, being dangling by these tentacles, and just sucked into the house of darkness. And as I got older, and when I saw this for the with adult eyes, when I was in high school, this has my favorite transformation sequence. And you're thinking, like, what are you talking about? Favorite? They're all the same. Like, but I'm talking about the situation. The situation that Adam finds himself in. When he's getting ready. That's why I get so excited in Secret of the Sword when the rebels are pretty much losing the battle in the Battle of Thamar, and you see Adam transform into He-Man, because this is going to be the first time that He-Man meets the Horde. And it's an exciting moment. So for me, this is my favorite transformation sequence, because not only, it's a dangerous situation, but this is the scariest character. And to me, like, to see He-Man take on something that genuinely frightens me to a great deal as a child, and then watching it as an adult, I'm like, this is so good. Like, I completely see why it scared me so much as a kid, but as an adult, I think this is phenomenal. This is fantastic. Yeah. And to hear Cringer tell, I get so excited talking about it here.
I could tell.
He says, oh, great, because I'm so excited here. I'm starting to get all like fuzzy head. It's like, Adam, in a few seconds, I'm back in the royal palace. So, You better raise your sword now, like hesitantly. And then the music kicks in, and Adam transforms into He-Man. Boom, and then Battle Kit jumps down, and he's ready to starts clawing at the door, and then He-Man jumps down and slashes the door open while Chakotay's laugh is. Oh man, it's just it. If I were watching this right now as I'm talking about this, I would press my nipples up against the screen because this is exciting me so much right now.
Well, good God, I don't know. I didn't know
it's so. I feel like I'm second guessing myself on quoting that scene here. I watched that episode so many times as an adult because it was so good.
Well, with that description you just said, I'm starting to wonder if it frightened you or excited you. I'm not sure, but you go ahead, take a drink.
No, as of right now, like I am feeling like excitement as I'm describing this right now.
I can tell.
It's fun to watch this episode in the dark, and once you get in, it is just like a haunted house ride that you're not going to get out of until this episode is over with.
And it's true. And her voice, just trying to tell him to, boy, that voice she had of calling him to try to keep following her. Oh man, that's creepy.
Probably arguably the scariest moment of the episode is when Stanley wakes up in this glowing, flashing light, and he says, "What happened?" You hear Linda go, "Boy, come to me, follow me," and it hands down. I don't care what was nominated for Best Actress or Best Picture that year. Linda Gary should have received an Oscar for Best Actress in a drama for the 1983 episode of House of Chakotay from the Filmation, cartoon series. This woman, there knew no boundaries when it came to voice work, and to have created a character that was, dear God, man. And I you have to praise the animation, too. That profile of her face floating in the cave in yellow, flashing, saying "follow, follow," and then slowly fades back into the darkness. I mean, Larry DiTillio admits that he wanted to write a scary story, and man,
he did.
The man scared. I would love to someday just thank him for scaring me so much as a kid, because I can appreciate all the effort that he put into this episode. That it's. You think of all the parents that were writing and complaining over He-Man's, encouraging devil worship and witchcraft and demons and all this other crap. But no, did anyone ever complain about this episode that was scaring children?
Right, and this episode.
Then again, too, maybe it's universally known as being the scariest episode of He-Man, but I have no idea how much it scared people. I would love to know, fans, if this episode, made you wet your pants. Were you afraid to go to sleep at night? Were you, traumatized and are still seeking help for it? I would like to know.
Well, I think definitely this episode. It hit it on all levels. Not only, of being a part 1 and part 2, the episode just being creepy in general, but the amount of characters that were in that are memorable, being from Mask to Chakotay to, as we know, Chakotay, Jesus, just the look of her, her design, again, another unique design, blue skin, just the colors of red and black and that purplish outfit and her kind of golden gloves and tiara, but the black eyes
the solid black hair and the black eyes.
That did it. Those black eyes, I was done when I seen them.
And it at the time, going to the video stores all the time, her mouth with the pouty red lips and fangs made me think of like the VHS tapes of like Fright Night Part 2 and The Howling 2, because it has a woman with red lips and fangs.
Did she think? In a way, did she remind you of being like kind of like a vampire? For me, I felt like she was like
like a vampire or something. Because at that age, I had not seen. I just knew of vampires and werewolves. But I was so easily scared by certain things as a kid, and Chakotay was like, that was it. It's like, is she a vampire or what? Because of a woman with fangs. Yeah. You just naturally think vampire, and Who knows? It would be a cool fanfic to decide that Chakotay is like a descendant vampire of some kind, which is like he's all about the darkness. Like vampires have to run around in the dark. Yeah. But
The eyes did it though. I mean, for me,
Yeah,
when
yeah.
you
Oh my
look at something
gosh.
like that, it's like horror characters. Again, not to bring up Jason or Michael Myers, but to think that when you don't see their eyes and you just see darkness, with that mask, that makes it scary. But I could picture she would have had just, white, white people, I mean, white eyes and just, with the black pupils or whatever. That one did it as much to see white. So I'm glad they just stayed black because it made her even more imposing. This character, like I
Yeah,
said,
and she's a very striking, like she's a beautiful evil woman too. I'm looking at her as an adult here. She clearly is a very striking woman, but man, I wouldn't want to kiss her. I mean,
no, you might want to give it a
she's
shot.
just so.
I think you give it a
Hey,
shot,
you
actually.
know what? Hey, why not? I could at least say, hey, you know what? I did make out with Cody one time.
We'll see. I can picture that. She's still hot. So, I just
Yeah,
might have been,
she is hot, and you know, I guess you just don't want her to bite your lip.
dead. Yeah, there you go. And then she has these little servants, these little darklings. Those things, some people again could think they look like, crazy a hot mess, but just seeing a thing with, like this bunch of mouths all over. I mean, it had multiple mouths, had tentacles, had that again, one kind of eye, and just floating and flying. Those were creepy little suckers that she had. Again, more things that were in this episode that are creepy.
I was just like, what, you know, you know, I'm just getting like all speechless here as just seeing that. I'm like, what are those things?
It didn't end, did it?
You know,
This cartoon. I mean,
yeah,
so much it wouldn't stop. It's like one after another. Here's another thing, another thing. How much can they shove down our throats to scare the crap out of us?
and I was like, Larry, hopefully one day we could just pick your brain on this and just say, dude, what I mean, he's a big Lovecraftian fan, or
Yeah,
Lovecraft, not Craftian, Lovecraft fan. So, and he says that this episode was definitely inspired by a lot of that stuff. So people who are fans of that definitely, I'm sure, see a lot of references from a lot of the creature designs that
and
are featured in
then
this episode.
right, because then we go into a whopper. I mean, again, just when you thought you were done seeing stuff, you see one thing that's so gigantic you can't even see all of it, and that's the sleeping beast. Again, we talked about the Darklings with the one eye. This is like the Darklings times 50,000, but one big mouth. I mean, teeth and just real sharp teeth, and he's like, I mean, it just like I said, the tentacles, everything. It's hard to describe how frightening this thing is, but it's like it's gigantic. It's what, maybe 10 times the size of any normal character or beast. Even though, like I said, we didn't see it all. We didn't see all that creature, did we? Like, wasn't part of its body still down the hole?
I believe so, but by that point, when it finally came out, I had done checked out. I was okay. It was by that point. I think I'd been scared so much that at this point, seeing a monster pop out of the black pool, I just like no. I think I'd become numb
It's just like you're
by that
done.
point because it was a imposing creature. Don't get me wrong, but the things that you had seen prior to him emerging, and knowing that Chakotay was going to sacrifice Rayman, He-Man, and Battle Cat to this thing,
Just leaving you.
adds another level of creepiness to it, that she's going to feed them to this monster, just like you see in a lot of movies like human sacrifices. They don't come out and just say it, but I mean, she says that's what they're there for, but it just adds another level of intensity to what she's trying to do, and what you as a watcher are witnessing. And
Yeah, that just it. So that was the finale of it. But I'll tell you what, there's one creature left in this episode.
yeah, I was gonna say
Yeah,
before we get to the
yeah.
oh
There's one that almost nobody ever mentions, and I'll tell you why this thing is the creepiest for me, and that's the rat. Now, okay, here's the thing. In fantasy, sure, I mean, everything that we talked about is absolutely scary, but even as a kid, those things aren't real. But rats are real, and you might have seen rats before, and the thought of a rat that's bigger than that it's giant, it's like, dinosaur like, whatever you want to say, chasing you through little dark hallways, That, I don't know about you, but that rat freaked me out more than anything in the cartoon because I could relate to seeing something real, if you know what I mean. I guess, does that make sense?
Yeah, but at that point, I had not seen rats before, and as a kid, I didn't know what it was. I just know it was this very creepy. And I had said earlier in the episode that not many actual beasts, and I was deliberately saying that because there was one in particular, which was the rat from House of Shakoti Part 2, crawling out of the ground of some sort of hole. And, it hears Stanley, it sees and it's done so well, just like in a horror movie, for Stanley to hear this growling and turns and looks down this hallway in the cave, and its face just pops up right out. And it's such a different design. It doesn't look like a very generic, like the Manticore in Orko's Favorite Uncle, silly design. But this is something that I felt like they went the extra mile and designed a very creepy, monster lurking around in this cave that would just love to eat anything it could get a hold of. And
Right.
it's got a weird sound effect of sounding like growling dogs and other kinds of animals. If you listen to it growling, you can hear like a variety of different animals that are kind of mixed in for its growling. It does. And it's just so cool to see when Stanley sees it crawl out. He doesn't scream or yell. His hair sticks up, and he just, I'm getting out of here. And when I would have started a particular choice adult word in that sentence there, so just try to imagine that, if you will. Because I say this is what happens when I get all describing this stuff and I get so super excited about it. It's just so well done because you're only given a few moments to breathe in this episode, and when once all everything just kind of falls apart for everybody, and Stanley's walking around, you hear this kind of calm music that you've heard in so many episodes. When he starts reading the hieroglyphics on the wall, and you think, okay, it's okay to relax right now. There's no harm. And then you hear that growling. Oh, dear God, man, what next?
They did it,
And
yeah.
sure enough, running down the hallway from it. He's not stopping to think. He's just running, just getting out of there, and then run right into a ghost face of Shakoti looking at him and saying, welcome, boy. Like, dear God, woman, what are
Right.
you doing to me here?
So we can't recommend this two-parter enough. So this is what you need to watch for.
My face from talking about this, people. So I assume that people who've listened to this have seen it at some point or another, but you need to just stop what you're doing.
Especially for Halloween. We got Halloween that's going to be tomorrow. So, everybody that's got kids and don't have kids, you need to watch House of Shakoti Part 1 and 2. So
and
that
I want everyone to watch these in the dark.
Yeah, that it helps, and that's always a better atmosphere in the dark. When
you see that glowing yellow face of Shakoti saying follow me, crank up the volume when that happens there and make sure all the lights are off. Lock your doors, bolt your windows, kind of thing.
Right. So, well, that's been a big whopper of all those characters. Now, we're gonna talk about what maybe some people dressed up as kids. Now, like I said, I have about 7 people actually showed outfits that they had from their childhood, and even some things currently as adults. And then we could share maybe what we remember dressed up as kids. So, it's a Halloween episode, we got to do that. So, first there's from Jeremy DeWitt. Now, here's the thing. He didn't have a childhood picture, but a couple years ago, his wife made this Ram Man outfit, and that was really impressive. I was like, wow. I mean, it's
a solid Ram Man outfit.
It's a solid Ram Man, from the outfit, the helmet. He got a cosplay axe and everything. But I was like, I was super impressed with this, and it's cool to see because, again, even if not when you're a kid you didn't have it, but people still continue to cosplay and dress up as adults. So I always love seeing outfits like that. So Jeremy, I appreciate you sharing that with us. And Andy Wankata, he has 2 different photos he sent. One, it's so freaking adorable. It's him as Merman and his little brother is Beastman, and they're in those little smocks.
That's precious.
Isn't it? Yeah, from 1984. And I was like, that's freaking adorable. So, yeah, I always love those little smock outfits. I don't even think I had many of them, but He shared one of those, and then he shared from I think it was 1986 was him as Hordak,
Oh,
and he's relaxing on the couch, and he's there with, I don't know if it's his brother who's his Lion-O, but those are pretty cool. So I appreciate him
and
sharing
that
those.
is one black Hordak.
Isn't it? I was like, man, Hordak is just, man, he is chilling on that couch, just relaxing. Like, are we going trick or treating already? You know, that's the look. You can see it through the mask. You can see it.
Yeah.
And so appreciate that. And then another one is from, well, Jamie Fretwell. He had a Hordak outfit, so it's cool. He shared that picture, and it looks like he either just got back from trick or treating or is going trick or treating. But it's always cool seeing little Hordaks, little outfits like that.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Now this one is a. There was one we got from, I think it was Dave Patterson. It's a modern one. It looks like, I forgot to ask him, but I think he made this outfit of He-Man for his son. So pretty cool that he's, keeping the power alive, if you will, so to speak, for a new
Absolutely.
generation. So we like that. We appreciate that. Then there was Paul Andrews. He shared, and this one's freaking adorable, when he was a little Skeletor. And those,
Little Lord of Destruction.
that's right. And I think his outfit, that's the dress-up kit, not the smock. But you remember the dress-up kits that they had to where you had the plastic mask and what? Yeah, so he did those, and I love seeing that and appreciate it. And the last one I'm going to show, this was kind of cool. There was a guy out there, his name's Joseph DiPiazza, and he liked a custom I made a while back of Battle Cat Man. He said, Joe, I want to do Battle Cat Man in my own vision. And he just shared this with me the other day, and I liked it. I was like, he got this cool kind of like, I don't know, armor from the store and some kind of like gladiator mask, but he made parts, has a little chain with like Skeletor head on it. It looks pretty cool. I mean, what do you think of that?
I thought his mask resembled the MYP look a little bit.
Isn't that cool? So it's like a cool little mix in his own vision. So I love that, man. I appreciated that. And so those are the pictures. Now I'll just share some of the memories. And now I'll get to, there's a cameo, the one that sometimes I always have to, get something for.
Queenie.
Okay. Now back to me. See, now I'm back. Now you get to see me. Now I'm going to read a couple other ones. There's from, it's Adam Gabbard or Gobbard. And I apologize if I'm not saying your name right. I feel horrible if I'm not. But he says he wanted to be He-Man or Skeletor, but couldn't find one on the shelf from the past. And he said all he ever was a skeleton, Tom the Cat, and a jack-o'-lantern and a pound puppy. So that's pretty cool, and I appreciate that. Then there's Greg Boyd. Greg's, this one kind of cracked me up. He said, well, I dressed up like the sorceress, so I guess I was a sorceress drag queen. He said my mom made the costume for me. So I like that. That's pretty cool. So that's his memory. There's, oh man, I hope I don't butcher your name. Kai Salih, I hope. He said, well, I played Ram Man wearing a pot on my head, but I guess that doesn't count. And I said, yeah, it counts. So that was his. Sean oh man, I'm sorry, man. Svarna, I hope that's your last name. He said, my mom cut up an old gray sweatshirt to make the chest harness. Then I'd have red shorts and socks with orange wristbands and one of a few different power swords from Mattel. So he obviously was He-Man. Matt McGill, he said, I was He-Man as a 4-year-old. He said, those cool department store costumes with the hard plastic mask. He said, and my mother dressed up my 2-year-old brother in a generic cat costume and told me he was Battle Cat. So I like that. I love stories like that. Adam McCombs, he said, I believe I had a He-Man costume. He said the store-bought kind with the plastic mask. So that's pretty cool. Max Feldman, he said, I dressed up as Roboto. My brother helped me make the outfit out of cereal boxes, sweatpants, toilet paper tube, old Tupperware, which my mom wanted to kill us for, marker, and etc. So that's what he said.
Interesting.
Yeah, that was, wow. What a, man, kids can be creative. Kevin Sakura, oh man, if I said your name wrong, please, I'm sorry. He said He-Man and Beastman is what he was for sure. And Joshua Coram, he said the closest I got was the crappy mask smock combo of He-Man in that 80s style. Well, I wouldn't say it's crap, that's how they were. You had to have the smocks. That's what it was. Dan LePage, he said, now this was cool. He didn't say about what he dressed up as, but this is really cool. He said, Dan LePage said he recently found out that his uncle used to work for Mattel in the factory and used to put the figures together on the card. So, I mean, it was random, different, but I thought that was still cool. He shared that. Gary Cox, he said he didn't have any of them, but he played, he was Monstar from Silverhawks. So that's cool.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, because you don't ever hear about many Monstars. Aaron Johnson said, yeah, and Aaron Johnson said, definitely went as He-Man for sure. He said, good old hard plastic mask. So that was his. Doug Turner, hey, that name sounds familiar.
Yes, it does.
Yeah, he said, I dress as Hordak. And then he was sarcastically saying the twin brother of Skeletor. he's got to be sarcastic.
Of course.
John Weiss said, I dressed up as He-Man. So that's cool. Can't get enough He-Mans. Boogie Roberson with Skeletor and Orko. And David Michael James, I'm not going to try your last name. I don't know if it's Rolchitz. I'm sorry. He said he tried dressing up as Skeletor and tried dressing up as Orko. Now, he says tried, so I don't know if it didn't really work like he wanted. But thank you. Richard Cagley, he said, as a kid, I was He-Man once. He said, as a kid, I was He-Man. Once as an adult, I've been King He-Man and Skeletor, and my oldest son, Tony, has been Man-at-Arms. My youngest son, Elvis, has been Orko. And Lillian, my little princess, has been She-Ra. He said, I love you guys. He said, I love your guys' show. Keep up the good work. Thank you. We love you as a fan. Thank you. Eric Eamon said, I was He-Man in 1984, I think, and Lady Hordak in 86. I have those vinyl one-piece costumes with the plastic masks. He said, I love them so. He said, I set them out in my bedroom so I could look at them each night before bed in anticipation of Halloween. So that was nice. And I think we have just 3 more. Jeff Eternal said, I didn't have nothing. He said, Halloween was not celebrated in the Philippines at the time. So sorry about that, Jeff, but, God bless you. Brandon Farrell said, Hordak in 85, She-Ra in 86. So there you go. He's representing Princess of Power. And finally, Chris Ford said Hordak. So, oh man, it's cool. I love hearing that back from the fans. When the fans can say stuff like that, share it. That's always awesome to hear anything they can give us.
Absolutely. That was fun to hear all those different costumes people got to wear.
Yeah. So, well, now I guess between you and I, who did you dress up as? Did you remember dressing up? Did you ever get any of the outfits or what?
I never saw any He-Man outfits when I had my first few Halloweens. So, had I seen the most basic, generic He-Man Halloween outfit to wear, I would have grabbed it. But going as a member of the G.I. Joe team, the Karate Kid, and a really punked out vampire with a big, heavy, acid wash jean jacket to wear because my mom didn't want me going out because it was cold.
Oh, wow. Does that suck? Do you remember that when you try to you put all the effort and then you had to dress up in something warm to cover your cool outfit?
Just like Jerry Seinfeld says, I don't recall Superman ever wearing a coat.
Right.
So yeah, but those are the earliest Halloween. So no, unfortunately, no any of those. Now, if whether it's Orko, Hordak, King Hiss, Tongue Lasher, whoever was available, He-Man, Skeletor, I would have gladly, without question. But unfortunately, no.
Did you crane kick anybody as the Karate Kid? Did somebody get extra candy? Did you hypnotize them and then kick them right in the face?
No, I can't say that I really did. No, nothing like that. I definitely wouldn't have been able to probably hold my balance that well to do that.
All right. Well, cool. I love all those outfits. As for me, no, believe it or not, I didn't have any of the outfits, and I know you think that's bizarre, but the ones I did have, I didn't use for going to trick or treating. I had the Skeletor, role playing kit that we seen earlier, and I also had the Hordak role playing set to where it was the harder masks, not those little plastic ones and the smocks, the hard stuff. I had them, but no, I did not wear those outside. I like role playing in the house. But as for going out for Halloween, I don't even need to tell you basically what I did almost all the time, even as a young kid. It was, okay, maybe I was the Hulk. I think I was the Hulk in one of those smocks. But when this stuff started coming around, I was Jason. I was Jason. I was Michael Myers. I was Freddy. I was Jason again. So, I mean, it's not really hard to understand what Joe dressed up as. But, so that was my stuff. I never got to enjoy those smocks of He-Man, Beastman, Orko, King Hiss, any of them. No. That's unfortunate.
I didn't either. I think the closest I got to an outfit that was similar to that was dressing up as the Joker after the '89 Batman film came out. Of course, I didn't wear a mask. My mom painted it up, but it was wearing one of those, what do you call them?
Smocks.
Mocks?
Like a smock. Yeah.
Smock. Yeah, it was like that of the Joker with the kind of traditional Joker look that they were using to advertise Joker merchandise back then. That was as close as I got to that without the mask. It was a painted face with the smock outfit that was just as a kid you're thinking like, I want to look as similar to the characters as I possibly can. And I probably would have thought that had I had a chance to pick out one of those He-Man costumes with the plastic mask and the smock outfit where it just had like Masters of the Universe kind of written on the chest.
It ruins it. It's
really
like, looking. Yeah, exactly. It's like, yeah, I know it's Masters.
I think it had something with like the muscle definition on the arms. Like the plastic sleeve had like a arm, like muscular arms. But
Orko's really got ruined because you're Orko, and then on the smock here, it's a picture of Orko doing magic. I'm like, yeah, I'm Orko. Why don't you put an O right there? There should have been a big O on my chest, not a picture of Orko doing magic.
Yeah. They did it with all the characters back then. Whether it was Spider-Man or Batman or whoever, it just feels like you're just cheating as kids, as if we don't know that we're not getting something that looks like the cartoon or the toy here. We're not stupid.
Exactly.
So, but I would have been happy to have it regardless, though.
All right. Well, man, that was fun. Like I said, it was our big 1 year episode. It was our Halloween episode. I mean, I hope everybody out there enjoyed, hearing everything that we had to say, and you ever have any questions and you have comments, you let us know what you think because, well, tomorrow's Halloween, so you can still comment on the show and in any of the links. But, well, how do you want to wrap it up, Tyler, for you? What kind of closing things you got to say? Any recommendations? Good ones.
Of course, recommendation. I'd say any of the episodes that Joe and I featured scary characters from, Brandon the Monster to Evil Seed to Return of Orko's Uncle, She Demon to Phantos. Any of those Save Skeletor. And of course, House of Shakoti Part 1 and 2 is just like, if you're going to watch pick one, that would probably be it.
Yeah.
With Halloween here. But any of those, or even make it a marathon. I feel like we recommended so many memorable episodes.
Yeah, I think we basically did your recommendations, didn't we? Just by
talking.
You pretty much
did. And if I am going to do a Thundercats recommendation, this is definitely to avoid any kind of confrontation about the whole Jaga thing. But the Ghost Warrior, because that was a Thundercats episode that I did find scary as a kid. Not as much as Shakoti, but I thought it was a very creepy ghost story episode.
So you're just you're not that great with confrontations.
What does that mean?
Well, remember you said something about the avoid confrontations. When you said that, made me think Back to the Future. Remember McFly? Didn't he say that? Like, just.
Oh yes, yeah. No, I just mocking the whole.
I know. That could be a whole nother episode again.
The whole debate over the Thundercats seeing Jog, and everyone's like, "What about Gorilla the Destroyer episode? The Ghost Warrior?" Like, what? You're like, that's when you need Gorilla Monster. Will you stop?
Will you stop, Brain? So,
those are my two recommendations. They're if it's or for both Thundercats and He-Man, you got an abundance of ghost stories and what have you, and monsters and demons and witches and things like that. Enough to get you a nice bucket of Sweet Tarts and Three Musketeers and Junior Mints and just chow down and watch some of these creepy episodes that Filmation and Ruby Spears dished out to us.
Well, you got to have some Hershey bars. If you recommend all that candy, you cannot have Halloween or any kind of candies at all. Hershey bar, you got to have that. So
I will see. If I'm going to go to candy, I'm thinking like Gobstoppers or gummy bears or even the gummy bears probably really aren't featured that much prominently as Halloween candy. But Sweet Tarts definitely got to go with some Sweet Tarts, man. Oh, and little boxes of Junior Mints.
Yep, and everybody out there, I love and respect if you like candy corn, but I hate that. I hated candy corn. I feel like I was eating wax. It was like, why are they giving me wax in here? Why? Who wants this crap? But hey, people like it. If you like it, more power to you. But okay. Well, as for me, yeah, go watch all the Friday the 13th and Halloween movie. Oh wait, that's a different type of show. All right.
Wrong podcast, Amato.
Exactly. Sorry. So be sure to go to fansofpower.com, popculture.com, he-manworld.com, and on Facebook you can go to Masters of the Universe He-Man and She-Ra Ultimate Fan Group. It's a great place for doing discussion. So until next time, have a powerful Halloween.
Hey, Nancy, no running in the hallway.
There you go.
I'm probably going to scare myself going to bed after just even uttering those words.
There you go. All right, that was good. We wrap it dirt. Oh, wait. Hey, a guest appearance. I just seen Jason down there, and I seen Michael Myers, too.
Do what now?
I just seen Michael and Jason down there. Look, can't you see him down there?
Down where?
A box down there. You see me, don't you? You see Michael Myers, too?
No, I just see you.
You can't.
Well, don't forget, you can call our 24-hour voicemail
there it
line. It's area code 217-953-4025.
There you go. I love the mask.
Now that's a Halloween sequel I want to see, where Michael Myers is a a telemarketer slash helpline service operator.
That's right.
Try turning it off and on again.
Who's gonna win this match? It's me against Michael Myers. I'm going with Jason.